Cloud computing is a fantastic domain that is constantly evolving with every passing day. Now, the main unit of a cloud computing provider lies in all of the services they have to offer. There are many types of cloud computing models that are in use today, and the important ones are IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Now, I'm sure you might have heard of it in conversation, PaaS, SaaS, and whatnot. But what are they and how do they differentiate from each other, considering that they all have a lot to offer, right? To answer this exact question, we here at Great Learning have come up with this video discussing about the various cloud computing service models. Make sure to watch the video completely as it discusses about the future of cloud computing as well.
Before we get started, I want to introduce you to Great Learning Academy. This is a free initiative by Great Learning where you can have access to over 200 plus courses with 1000 plus hours of free content on all of the trending high demand domains absolutely free. Register now to complete the course and get your free certificate of completion as well. Check out the link in the description box of the video below for more details. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. This is done to make sure you do not miss out on any of the new updates or video releases from Great Learning. And of course, guys, if you enjoy this video, show us some love and do like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing, right? So make sure you share this video with your friends, colleagues, and everyone who can make use of it. And at the end of it, make sure to comment on the video if you have any queries or any suggestions, and I'll be more than happy to respond to all of your comments.
So guys, here are the takeaways for this particular session. Since we're discussing cloud computing service model, it becomes very vital that we understand, a lot of things which involve and, which talk about the world of cloud computing in itself, right? So we're going to start by understanding cloud computing trends. Once we know what's happening in the market right now, let us try to figure out why cloud computing is the next big thing. Let us try to understand how we are trying to incorporate it in our everyday life and so much more, right? Now, after this, we're going to discuss and we're going to dive right into the depths of understanding all the cloud computing services out there, the models we're going to be discussing, we're going to be comparing. It's a very simple concept, but it's a very important thing that you guys have to know, right? And at the end of this session, we're going to be discussing about the future of cloud computing too. So that's a very, very important part. Since you guys are watching this video, I am sure it means a lot to you to know what's going to happen in the later stages of cloud computing's era as well, right? So we're going to discuss all of that as well. Fantastic, guys. Let us get started with cloud computing trends now. One very important trend or one very important thing that you have to talk about the cloud computing industry is that this is an industry which is constantly evolving to a point where it is showing the highest projected growth by any IT industry out there, right? Now, when you, directly take a look at the year 2021, right? We're going through a pandemic. It almost seems like the pandemic is about to end and whatnot. Does this mean that the world of cloud computing slowed down? Well, it's the exact opposite that happened, right? So now cloud computing is a domain which aims to reach $310 billion across the globe for this particular year. How amazing is this, right? Now, this is a domain that is worth so much. And if you take a look at the previous years as well, right? So the 310 billion number that we have for 2021, it was actually $40 billion less for the year 2020 and another $90 billion less for 2019. So if you can see, we've grown somewhere around $130 billion just in the last 2 years, and out of which 1 year completely, the year 2020 was so different that even the world of IT was tumbled around a lot, right? So this actually worked in the favor of cloud computing because at the end of the day, work from home, education from home, whatever it was going on or whatever is still going on requires cloud computing in one way or another, right? So it actually worked in the favor of this particular domain. Now, the third thing that you really have to know about, and a very important trend, is that all of these cloud resources that we have, and of course all the hybrid models that are going into usage today, right, they are taking up the majority of the businesses. Now, you might be wondering about what a hybrid model is. See, a hybrid model can consist of actually using certain services in a cloud computing platform and having your own in-house servers to work alongside that as well, right? Now, hybrid computing, this version of actually going to use the data to store it online, to store it in an in-house, on the premise server, whatever it is actually a trend that is going. Now, for certain companies where they might not trust the cloud computing service with their complete confidential data, they might choose to store it in their in-house servers and maybe connect to a service for added functionality, added benefits and all of that, right? So in that cases, this kind of a trend that we're trying to see is predicted to be on the rise for the years 2021 through 2023. So let's see where we go on with that trend, but I'm sure we are headed that way as well, right? Perfect. Now, why we require cloud computing is such a fantastic thing to talk about, because at the end of the day, we can have a very, very long conversation on this particular aspect of it, because it is completely transforming the way we work with the data right now. There was a time when you had to have data in your own office to work with, but today it can be on the other side of the globe and you can still access it in the matter of milliseconds, and everything is there ready for you to consume the data, right? That's how the world of cloud computing is changing everything around us. It so happens that we are living in a world where today you can move everything there is to move into a cloud computing environment. And yes, you can have entire companies function directly by making use of a cloud computing provider. Now, this might seem like a new thing to you, but in the back end, there are thousands of companies who are already doing this, right? So there's no wonder that the cloud computing industry is worth $310 billion today. And the second important thing we have to discuss about is the scope of data storage and the powerful processing methodologies that we are getting from these cloud computing providers. Now, at the end of the day, if you really have to talk about what happens in terms of storing data quickly, retrieving it quickly, the cost to store data on a cloud computing platform, right? You're of course using someone else's server. You're going to be using someone else's hard drive space to put your own data into it. So there is a charge for that. And these cloud computing providers are trying to find more efficient ways that will ensure at the end of the day that the end customer who's paying for storage, right? The number that the person has to pay keeps going, keep going low. That's a very important thing. And when we're talking about powerful processing, I think year after year, this is something which all the big manufacturers always look at, right? Be it Intel, be it AMD, or anyone else who's providing the processing power to these cloud computing platforms right now, year on year, as the consumer offerings also go on changing and becoming more powerful, these server side entities, processors, whatever it is, these get a huge amount of emphasis on this as well. They make sure that it's almost futuristic. You will feel like using a futuristic product when you are on a cloud computing platform is one of these reasons why there's always the latest and the greatest hardware that is going to power the domain. Another reason why it's a fantastic domain and service, right? Perfect. Now, the third thing that we really have to talk about is understanding the variety of services that are provided in these multiple different domains that we're talking about. Do you want to store something? You have a service for that. Do you want to make use of orchestration tools? Do you want to make use of Kubernetes? You can do it easily. Do you want to bring in DevOps to the cloud? Well, possible. Are you a person who wants to work on machine learning using a cloud computing premise or an environment? Possible, right? So are you a person who just wants the virtual machine to work with and to just probably dump a certain of your data to back it up on a server on the other side of the globe? Possible. Do you want to run an entire company on the on the ecosystem of the cloud? Again, you know the answer to all of this, right? So all of these, when you say it out, it's really easy, but then there should be a thought in your head at the moment which says, okay, so if you're doing all of this, what does it cost, right? The cost is actually very cheap compared to you setting up your own servers. That is the reason why these platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP rose to that kind of a popularity, right? Now, an important thing that these guys are doing is they're giving you a policy which says you'll have to pay as you go. Right now, what this actually means at the end of the day is that you'll only be paying for the amount of computing power and the amount of storage that you might be using for a set duration of time. Now, if you're using a computer which is probably powered by an i7 processor, who's giving you 500 gigabytes of storage, and you only want to use it for maybe like 3 hours or 4 hours, you'll only be charged for those particular hours, right? Now, again, there's a lot of nitty-gritty things that you'll have to look at it, but the best part is that it's not like you have to pay for the entire computer and have it for an entire day, week, or a month, even though you might need it for a couple of hours, right? So that's not the case here. How much ever is your requirement, you can customize your product for that. And that is a fantastic thing of why, cloud computing is, the fancy new domain out there as well, right? Perfect. Now let us quickly talk about some of the most interesting, most important benefits of cloud computing out there. There are three important things that you should know. We're going to align this towards the cloud computing models we're about to discuss as well, right? Now, there are three important concerns whenever someone talks about moving to a cloud environment. The first thing is, they talk about scalability. Right now, you might have 10 servers in your office. If you're scaling up, probably you might want 15, 20, 30. You're probably a moment's notice away from maybe making a purchase, bringing in all your servers, getting it set up in a matter of a week or a month, and you're done, right? That's one concern. The second concern is affordability. Now, you may or may not be able to afford these 10, 15 new servers that you have to purchase, maintain, work on cooling systems, and pay a person who's going to be an administrator for those servers, right? Depends. The third thing is data security. Now, if you've seen these videos on Google which talk about these data centers, you will know that they are usually guarded by ex-military people and people who are heavily armed, right? So it is not a cakewalk to, just go into a data center to pick up your data. But I don't think that your offices might have armed guards or ex-military soldiers who are protecting the gates, right? So to talk about the advantages now, in terms of scalability, if you have 10 servers right now and maybe tomorrow you require 1,500, you're probably 10 or 15 mouse clicks away to do that. How fantastic is that, right? That's a huge advantage. You can program your environment in a way where as soon as it starts seeing more traffic or more load, it can go on to add more servers on its own as per the requirement. It's a feature that's called as auto scaling. And that is a very important thing, right? So instead of having your product or application crash, you are going to give it, more of a leeway, more of a legroom, headroom, whatever you want to call it, so that your application is functioning 24/7, regardless of the amount of traffic that it sees, right? Perfect. The second thing is affordability. Pay as you go is the one word answer I have for affordability right now, because you'll only be paying for how much you're going to be using, and that is just a huge advantage in its own, right? So, if you're talking about how important affordability is in cloud computing, I think I just have to put a full screen, slide of it just saying the word affordability, because affordability is the centerpiece of cloud computing. The third thing that we have to talk about is security. Of course, as I just told you, when you have people who are heavily armed protecting your data, and it probably requires 10 or 12 levels of security access to even go on to physically see the servers, well, you know what we're talking about, right? Your data is pretty much secure. You have nothing to worry about that. And I think these three advantages usually are downplayed all the time, but you as a person who's looking towards understanding cloud computing service models or the domain of cloud computing itself, I think it'll add a lot of value for you to understand that these benefits of cloud computing punch way above their weight, and you have to know about this, right? Perfect. Enough to actually go on to talk about the cloud computing services. Now, guys, if you have had experience working with these cloud computing services or service models, as they're also called, head to the comment section right now to tell us about what you know about them, where you might have used them, and how you plan to learn it as well, right? So, guys, head to the comment section. We can have an interaction there based upon the comments you put down, right? Perfect. Now, a very important thing that we have to talk about, whenever the discussion is usually about the cloud computing services, is that there are many different types of models. There's many types of cloud computing. How would you know what would fit your business the best, right? In fact, this should be a first question whenever a company says, hey, let us try to explore cloud computing platforms. The first question you have to ask is, so what model are we going to use? What application are we trying to develop and deploy? What services do you think are the ones that best fit our requirement, right? So these are the important questions that one has to ask. Now, to talk about the services themselves, there are three very important types of service models that the majority of cloud computing providers offer. So it's IaaS, or also called as infrastructure as a service. Then you have PaaS, PaaS or platform as a service. Then you have SaaS, SaaS. It's also called as software as a service, right? Now, these three, believe it or not, have a huge thing to do in the cloud computing world, right? So without further ado, let me actually talk to you about how you can go on to choose one so that you have a clear understanding even before we discuss the services, right? Perfect. Now, what's the most important thing whenever you're trying to provide a solution using the cloud computing platform? You're trying to understand what it is that's required of you. And the second thing is, can your cloud computing platform handle all of these that's being required, right? Two important points. So how would you now sit and choose a model that would work? The first thing, whenever you have to choose a model is to do some groundwork, right? It is to understand what are the models that are existing in that particular provider. Now, AWS, Azure, be it GCP, all of them do support most of these types of services, but you do have to take a look at it in depth to know that, hey, so we've started with AWS now. So later down the line, you must not be at a situation where AWS does not provide a service. So let's try to migrate to Azure, right? Now, that is not a good way of planning. So the first step is to definitely understand all the models that are provided by your cloud computing provider. As soon as that is done, the second most important thing is you have to understand your project requirements, know what is expected of the model itself. Once you align the respective models that are being provided by the provider, and then you understand whatever is required by the project, you can bring these two together to set up a workflow that states, hey, so this is the model that we're going to consider going ahead for our product here on this cloud computing platform. So we can go on to build upon this. We can go on to work, step by step by using these services, right? Perfect. So now you know how, usually companies go on to choose a service model as well. So let us talk about the first one. It's also called as IaaS. So whenever I call it as IaaS, IaaS or infrastructure as a service, guys understand that it's the same thing that we're trying to talk about. Right. Now, a very important thing that you have to understand about infrastructure as a service is that here you are being given cloud computing resources. So when you talk about resources, right, think about things such as storage, storage on a cloud computing platform. Maybe you want to back up your photos and all of that. Think about the networking gateway that you provided. So you require a connection between you and your cloud servicing model, which has to be a constant communication path, and that you're moving data back and forth. So even that has to be managed by someone. And then think about the hardware. So you're storing your data, be it in a hard drive there, an SSD there, whatever it is. So it's a hard drive where your data is going into, right? So even that has to be thought about, who's providing, who's maintaining, and all of that. Now, the fascinating thing here is that with IaaS, right now, this model is so popular that it has actually shown to grow by around 40% in the year 2021 alone. Now, these are projected numbers. At the end of 2021 is the time when we are going to see if this number is true or not. But at the end of the day, you have to realize that IaaS is extremely popular. Right now, you might have heard of these examples that we are about to discuss. Take a look at the last line. DigitalOcean, AWS, Azure, GCP, all of these guys provide the service, they provide IaaS if you have to use it in one way or another. Right now, this is IaaS. Services like storage, networking, and hardware is provided. But what is it that exactly that you as a person will have to manage, and what is it that the cloud manages on your behalf, right? Now, I've divided things into two segments, as you can see. On the left, you have everything that you would manage as a person who's still using the cloud computing platform. On the right, it is showing you everything that the cloud computing platform manages for you, right? Perfect. Look at all the points you have on the left side. You have applications, data, the runtime, and the operating systems. Now, these are what you have to manage as a person who's going to be using IaaS, right? So whatever application that you're trying to develop and deploy on the cloud computing platform is your responsibility. Whatever data that is used by these applications that you're moving around back and forth, backing it up, whatever it is, you have to provide, right? Because it's your application. The third thing is the runtime. Where will you bring together the application and the data to create a product that will work on the cloud computing platform? That's again managed by you here, right? So when you're running all of these things, when you're creating an application, well, where is the application running on? What is it running on? Is it running on Windows? Is it running on Linux? Is it running on iOS? Is it running on Android? So all of these operating systems as well is something that you'll have to look towards to make sure. It's like this. It's a very simple saying. The cloud computing platform is giving you an infrastructure to use, but you have to sit and build upon and create a product using the infrastructure, right? Because look on the right side right now. The servers, right? Wherever your data is stored, however your data is stored, data retrieval, data backups, all of these is completely taken care by the cloud computing platform itself. Even when it comes to how your data is stored, how your data is retrieved, and how much of data storage do you require as well. So in terms of that, in terms of handling this bandwidth over the network, well, the cloud computing platform manages all of those for you. An important thing it also manages your worthwhile mention is the virtualization technologies, right? So as I told you, sometimes you will have to scale up really quick. So using these virtual machines, as we call it, and of course other concepts of virtualization, you really don't have to break your head about it, maybe to an extent where you might just have to configure it, but that's literally about it. Everything apart from that, of how your application talks to these virtualization technologies, is something that you'll have to look at, but that's about it. Everything else is managed by the cloud. Fantastic, right, guys? So take a note of all of these points. These are important, and these are what you'll be quizzed upon if you ever go to cloud computing interviews. And these are foundational concepts. So applications, data, runtime, OSs is what the user manages, and everything else is just managed by the cloud. Perfect. The next service that we're going to check out is platform as a service, or as it's also called as PaaS. Guys, an important thing that you really have to know about PaaS is that it is considered slightly better than infrastructure as a service. Let me tell you why. Here, you're automatically given the ability to scale up resources, hardware, and all of those are like, think about it, right? Infrastructure as a service talks about how you're given an infrastructure and you have to build upon it. In PaaS, you're given an entire platform that says, hey, you can use all the services that are present here. We're going to manage a lot of things for you. We're going to completely simplify your approach of how you're going to be developing a software, how you'll be working with probably multiple programming languages, using multiple frameworks, hundreds of libraries, creating a very complex application. So the cloud computing platform says you really do not have to break your head about all of that. We're going to take care about it, but you do have to manage one or two things, right? So talking about the primary examples of platforms as a service is AWS, you have EBS, you have the Google App Engine, you have Apache Stratos, and you have many others who provide platform as a service as well, right? AWS, EBS is something which you might have definitely heard of, Google App Engine as well. Now to take a look at what you will be managing and what the cloud will be managing, I see that you understand that there's a shift here, right? So as you who is using a platform as a service, it becomes very vital that you only manage your application and data. Everything else, storage, servers, runtime, networking, virtualization, operating systems, whatever it is apart from your own applications, the development, the deployment, maintenance of your application, and all the data that goes into either directly or indirectly helping your application work is the only thing that you're going to manage, right? Only two things. Everything else, the entire cloud computing platform takes care for you. Of course, you do have to configure it here and there. You have to manage it. You have to make sure that you're bridging the gap that exists between your application and the cloud computing platform and all of that. But you're getting an entire platform. You just have to bring your application. You just have to bring your data, and you have the entire platform to work with, right? That's a very important thing that you have to note here. Now, I hope we were clear with PaaS, right? Platform as a service. Now there's an even more fantastic model. It's SaaS, which is again very popular. So let's take a look at what SaaS is. Now, SaaS is a fantastic service that's provided over these cloud computing platforms here, because here you will require a lot of things to first of all run an application, and everything that you require is provided by the platform itself. So the entire cloud computing platform is given like a software to you. That's why it's called software as a service. So there is absolutely nothing that you have to worry about. Do you have to think about software updates? Do you have to think about how you have to constantly maintain your virtual machines, operating systems, the latest drivers, the latest software? No. All of these are being managed by a cloud computing platform. Now, the other side of software is hardware. So do you have to think about constantly allocating new stuff to make your application keep floating? Do you have to always think about using the next latest and the fastest processors, the latest and the greatest storage methodologies? Do you have to bring in new services to keep replacing the old ones? What do you do, right? You don't have to do any of these. That's the best part about all of these. So whatever you have, right, any application that you might have, you even will not even require a reinstallation or an installation of it on whatever existing infrastructures that you might have. So it's literally a direct drag and drop. You can move, you can make sure. Of course, it's going to require a little more work than drag and drop, but considering the process of moving a company or a product completely to the to the cloud, it becomes important that you have to know that SaaS is probably the easiest way of how you can go on to do it, right? Now, once you're being given an entire software as a service, think about the examples. All the Google applications that you use, Google Photos, Gmail, any other Google Play Store, whatever this is, right? All of these are softwares that are being given to you. There are services which are powered by the cloud. Hey, at the end of the day, that is the same as SaaS, right? So another fantastic example is a CRM tool, which is Salesforce. I am sure you might have heard of Salesforce. You might have used it. You might have seen someone else use it, right? So Salesforce again is a cloud computing platform that's given to you as a service, that's given to you as a SaaS, as a software as a service offering, where you can do a ton of different things, right from application development all the way to deployment, maintaining. Well, there's literally 100 use cases or applications of Salesforce that we can talk about right now, but I think you guys get the picture here, right? So to even talk about the things that we just discussed, IaaS and PaaS, well, you might be seeing something missing on your screen. What does the user manage here, right? Everything that we saw until now is now being managed by the cloud. So they're giving you an entire platform for you to work on it, and on the platform itself you can develop applications. You can talk about how you'll be using the servers, what storage methodologies you want, what runtime that is provided by the cloud computing platform, how you manage to use it, what are the networking methodologies that you're going to need, IP, TCP, all of these things, and talk about virtualization, thinking about what operating system that you're going to be using to run your products off on. Again, all of these are already provided to you. All you have to break your head about is how you're going to be configuring it to make sure your application or your end requirements are met. How simple, how fantastic, and how much of a potential that this offers to the cloud computing environment is something that I cannot emphasize enough on. Now, do not get me wrong, IaaS and PaaS, both are fantastic, but for my preferential usage of when I'm talking about the power of a cloud computing platform, I think there is no other winner when we talk about SaaS, right? But that is not the case always. Now, you might think of it this way, saying, hey, so the cloud manages everything on SaaS, so why shouldn't everyone use SaaS? But do you know that SaaS is not the most popular cloud service model out there? So which one is the most popular one and why? First of all, to answer this particular question, we need to talk about who these users are. Who is the end user of IaaS, PaaS and SaaS, right? Now for IaaS, when we're talking about the end users who actually use these service models, they're all network professionals. Now remember what all you managed and remember what all the cloud computing experts, the platform managed, right? At the end of the day, if you're a person who has to also look towards OS, you have to look towards your product, your application, your storage, your data and everything else. You are a person who has to be proficient with making your cloud computing platform talk to your application, right? So in that case, you will not be an application developer sitting at the end. You will be a network professional. But for PaaS, platform as a service, that's different. Here, you'll be only working on your application and providing the required data for the application to work. Everything else, the cloud computing platform takes care, right? At the end, what does it mean? You're a person who's writing an application. You're a person who's developing an application using the cloud computing platform. Application developers. Make sense? Perfect. Next, we're talking about SaaS. SaaS is where all the end users can come together, right? Now, at the end of the day, you as a person, as a beginner who's not an expert, who's not a network professional, who's not an application developer, can get started with the platforms such as Salesforce and start writing your first application without having any software, without having any local hardware to work with. Of course, you're going to require an internet connection, but that's the basic of it, right? So, does this mean SaaS is the most powerful tool? Does this mean, PaaS is probably the most popular one since we have millions of application developers across the globe? The answer is slightly different. Right now, the entire enterprise workload, of the entire world that we're talking about 15% of it is taken by infrastructure as a service, and 35% of the entire enterprise workload is taken by PaaS, and of course 25% is taken by SaaS as well. Now, as you can see, the most important, the most popular service model in the world today by a good margin, right? We're talking about percentages, comparing and bringing together the entirety of the world here. So the 10% jump that you see, 25% for SaaS and 35% for PaaS, is actually a huge number, right? So the most popular offering that we have today is PaaS. At the end of the day, you might even realize the reason, right? So application developers just want to use a platform, when they're getting all the perks of platform as a service, they can concentrate upon developing their best applications, making sure that their data models, their data pipelines are intact, and eventually they all work to having a working application, right? So this becomes the reason of why, PaaS is the most popular cloud computing service model out there right now. We'll see if that changes. We'll see if it goes on to, leaning towards SaaS. As you can see, the number in SaaS is also going up along with PaaS every day, right? Anyway, now to talk about why cloud computing is considered to be the future, I think this is another huge discussion. Let's try to keep it to its core, right? The first thing is, well, you might have seen all the things that we spoke about: application data, storage, virtualization, whatever it is, right? So we spoke about a slide full of things, and you can do everything on the cloud right now. You want to back up your photo to the cloud, you can do it. Do you want to run a company on the cloud? You can do it. Whatever video meetings that you have, whatever application that you're trying to develop, whichever other company that you're trying to support by probably providing them with a service using a cloud computing platform, possible. So whenever you think about any sort of situation or a solution, right, even the world of IoT and machine learning is possible with cloud computing today, and it's very popular as well. So maybe if you're traveling to the airport or something and you forgot to switch off a light at your home, you can say, hey Alexa, turn that light off, or check if the light is on or off. How do you think again that you're talking to Alexa and Alexa is talking to the application, the unit that is sitting at your home? Cloud computing, right? So you have to think about all of these things. You have to think about these applications that is everywhere around you. Now, you watching this video on YouTube, you have to understand this data is stored in YouTube's servers, and it is all the data is not definitely sitting at our own office, right? Data is spread across multiple different locations. Now, you might be watching this video where the actual content of this video might be stored thousands and thousands of miles away from you. But does it change your user experience? Well, no, right? That's the fantastic aspect of cloud computing. No matter having your servers on the other side of the globe, or even having it underwater, like what Microsoft were doing with their Azure services, I forgot the name of the project, but they did that. They took an entire array of servers, put it in a tube, and put it underwater for a year or so to see how, in terms of cooling efficiency, that would work, right? They literally put it in the ocean. Perfect. Now, to talk about the second reason of why cloud computing is the future, it has to be pricing, ladies and gentlemen. Now, computing parts are not cheap. Now, if you're a person who has ever built a computer, or if you're a person who has shopped for a laptop or something recently, you will know that it is pretty pricey, right? It again doesn't depend on where you are in the world. You might be in the US, you might be in India, you might be in China, wherever you are, it is still expensive. Day by day, the price of hard disks, day by day, the price of processors are going up and up. They're not really becoming as cheap as once we thought it might be. So when investment becomes a huge problem, the first thing people will look towards is, okay, can you make someone else store your data? And who do you think that else person here is? Cloud computing platforms, right? It's not just storage. It's about maintaining. It's about making sure it doesn't crash. It's about making sure even if you have a server which messed up, knowing that your data is probably safe, it is backed up somewhere else, is again a very important concern, right? So there is various pricing plans. Pay as you go is the heart of cloud computing, in my opinion. And no matter how much I emphasize on it, I think we're still scratching the surface on it, because if you are a company who's using this, you definitely know how much of money that you're saving just by using these platforms, right? Perfect. The next point that we have to talk about, why cloud computing is the future, has to be high performance, right? So it's not like you're trying to upload a picture and it probably takes 10 minutes or 15 minutes for a single picture to go. That might be your internet or your bandwidth limitation. People are moving terabytes worth of data every single day, and all of these cloud computing platforms do not even break a sweat for the huge amount of data that's being moved around, right? one thing that I always get asked is, can you overload a cloud computing platform? It is very rare, but yes, in some cases it does happen. But again, to go on to do that, you just have to cram all the world's data and you have to bring it together at the same time, where even intelligent entities like AWS and Azure, the services are confused about what needs to be done or what shouldn't be done. So in those cases as well, apart from those one or two outliers where it is just impossible to handle terabytes worth of data a second, again, that's also changing. Companies today are even handling that. But apart from that, you have the highest performance of of the world out there. There was a time when people used to say, for all you gamers out there who are watching this video, right, you require good high performance PCs, personal computers, for you to play good games, generational titles, triple A titles, or whatever that you guys call your fancy new games, right? Even for that, cloud computing platforms now bring you its magical power of hardware and software, so you can sit at your home, even though you might have a low powered PC or you might be using a netbook or something, you can play the most memory intensive, the most graphical intensive game that the world has to offer to you, because you're using the power of a cloud computing platform. How fantastic is that, right? Perfect. And this, among numerous other reasons, are why cloud computing platform is such a fantastic domain, guys. Now, one important point that you have to talk about is how can you build upon learning further after this video, right? So guys, one important thing that you have to talk about is, whenever you're learning cloud computing, there's millions and millions of articles on Google. Now, that's a good thing and that's a bad thing. Good thing because you have access to ton of information out there. The bad thing is you might lose your structured way of learning if you go on to follow all of these in an ad hoc way. If you do not have a structured approach to your learning, cloud computing is like a huge ocean. If you're dropped in the middle of the ocean, there are chances of you surviving very less, right? It's an ocean, right? So it's no match for one human being, an entire ocean. So cloud computing domain, again, you're not expected to become a thorough expert in everything that exists in the domain. But if you're working on your way to becoming an expert, I highly suggest you take a structured approach. Make sure you talk to us experts. We've been doing this for a really long time. We've been working in the industry, so we can give you more insights about what's going on, what's the best way that you guys can use to learn, so you guys speed up and join the industry and have an impact as well, right? So that's an important thing that I had to mention. Now, if we talk about, guys, more free content on cloud computing, I highly suggest you guys check out Great Learning Academy, a fantastic place where you will get free courses. You can sign up, enroll, and of course at the end of the day have a free certificate of completion as well. Then you already know you have the Great Learning YouTube channel. I hope this video was of great help for you all. I'm sure you guys will subscribe. I'm sure you guys will like this video, because as always, whenever we talk about cloud computing, you guys are a fantastic audience, right? Perfect, guys. And after this, again, you have Great Learning blogs, where you can use these technical blogs to again learn. If you're a person who loves to read, again, it's a fantastic thing to go on to do that, right? So guys, with this, you have come to the end of the session. I hope with this we were clear with all the cloud computing service models. These are very, very important that you have to know if you're working on a career in cloud computing, guys. So we hope we were clear with all of these concepts. If you have any comments, if you have any feedback or any suggestions, guys, head to the comment section and do let us know. We'll be more than happy to pick up your questions and answer them at the earliest there, right? Fantastic, guys. With this, I'll see you on the next one.
I want to introduce you to Great Learning Academy. This is a free initiative by Great Learning where you can have access to over 200 plus courses with 1000 plus hours of free content on all of the trending high demand domains, absolutely free. Register now to complete the course and get your free certificate of completion as well. Check out the link in the description box of the video below for more details. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. This is done to make sure you do not miss out on any of the new updates or video releases from Great Learning. And of course, guys, if you enjoy this video, show us some love and do like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing, right? So make sure you share this video with your friends, colleagues, and everyone who can make use of it. And at the end of it, make sure to comment on the video if you have any queries or any suggestions, and I'll be more than happy to respond to all of your comments.